And we're live. Good day, Whiskey brothers and sisters. We are honored to have you, the viewer, in our panel with us today. This is our second last broadcast, so this is a very special day for us. My name is Dolph. I'm the president of the Alberta Scotch Society, founder of the Whisky Book Club, and your host tonight. For those that are new to us and you haven't been here for the past 3 months, I'll tell you a little bit about us. We're a group of whiskey geeks that love to share a dram, share our passion for reading, but mostly about whiskey and whiskey-related activities. The choice of our present tome, our third book, is inspired initially, and it's this one right here, by our sense of adventure and my long-held desire to do the whiskey trail in Scotland, bourbon trail with our neighbors down south. But Canada's got so much history of Davin's written so much about, Blair so much about. I'm just impacted by it. I had to go see it for myself. So we started our own Canadian Whisky Journey. It's a virtual journey, but it's a journey nonetheless. So when we're done with this in our first hour, stick around. We're going to continue the fun with our more relaxed atmosphere broadcast called The After Draft. And thanks to Blair and Davin's book, I'll put it up again. It's our tour guide book. Tons of photos, tons of pictures for Dave and I, maps, directions, suggestions, tells us where to go, where not to go. Well, it doesn't tell us where not to go. It's really weird. They gave us a direction. They gave us the inside track to this distillery today, the Newfoundland Distillery Company. Without them, we wouldn't be visiting this man today. Davin and Blair, our spirit guides on this journey, they have helped us across this vast, beautiful land of ours, and we're really happy they did. So when we're done with this, stick around. We're continuing the fun with the relaxed atmosphere after jam. Starts about 5 minutes after this. So after my long-winded introduction, let's start our roundtable introduction with our names, other platform handles, as well as what you've prepared or your highlighted dram tonight. So we're starting with the gunpowder and rose rum, but some of us might have started with the seaweed gin. We'll find out soon enough. We're going to start with Blair and Davin, our spirit guides, continue with our special guest, Peter, and then on to Dave, and then back to me. Davin, you're up.
I'm up already. Good. I'm Davin de Kergommeaux. I'm half of the team that wrote this book, The Definitive Guide to Canadian Distilleries, which we're using to tour Canada, visiting distilleries, not just whiskey distilleries. We have rum distilleries and gin distilleries as well, as we're visiting tonight. On Twitter and Instagram, you can reach me at DAVINDEK, at DavinDEK. Well, now on to you, Blair. Oh, I'm drinking this gunpowder and rose gin from Newfoundland Distillery. This is fabulous stuff. I can really taste the gunpowder.
Is it just straight up, Davin?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. And on to Blair.
Blair Phillips, co-author of the Definitive Guide to Canadian Distilleries. I kind of screwed up and I poured some cloudberry gin. But while no one was looking, I quickly poured some gunpowder and rose. And I have some seaweed gin on standby when I have to tuck into that. So on to the next.
Oh, hi. I'm Peter Wilkins, and you can reach me at the Newfoundland Distillery Co. I'm currently on a seaweed gin and tonic as a quick refresher, so I've got rather hot running around. But after that, I will move on to a bit of gunpowder. The license, I'm not very good at this. Probably, I'll do a classic, an upmarket rum and coke, which is called a Cuba Libre. And I'll squeeze some lime in it to make it very exotic.
Very Libra.
And Dave, you're up.
Hey guys, it's Yukon Dave coming from his basement. I kind of snuck a little sample of the gin last night, and I'm looking forward to trying the gin with all of you. I can be reached at Yukon Dave.
Underscore Edmonton.
Yukon Dave underscore EDM. Okay. Yeah. I can be reached there. Thanks.
It's my turn. I'm up. It's all me. And so I'm Dolph Shaw. President Alberta Scotch Society can get me there. The Spirit of Yeg. What I've got is an exceptionally large rum Hatton, and I got these from Peter, I think, a couple days ago. It was supposed to be 1.5 ounces of Gunpowder Rose rum, but I started with 3, so I got 3 ounces of the rum, 1 ounce of the vermouth, and a lot of bitters. It's fantastic, but I don't know how I'm going to fare after this, because after that, I've got a Negroni, and I doubled the recipe for the Negroni because I thought my wife was going to have some, but I think it's all mine too. So in 2 hours, I might be quite the sight for everybody else. So welcome. Thank you for coming, everybody. We're going to start this show off with a question to Davin and Blair. Usually we start with Peter or the owner or somebody, but I want to go straight with Davin and Blair, because when we look in the book, we see that you guys have highlighted this distillery on page 286, 287. Tell us, when you went there, why did you highlight the distillery? Why is it so prevalent in the book? Tell us your story. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first if you want.
Run.
All right. I'm getting a lot of echo on my earphones because they're starting to fail, but I'll fight through this. So we went to Newfoundland in 2014. It was, I think, about 3 years before Peter and Bill opened the distillery. And while we were there, the first place we went to was a place called Gillespie's Winery, I think. And they made a vodka using iceberg water to proof it. And while we were there, they had this massive eau de vie still that they claimed was from St. Pierre de Miquelon during Prohibition. We later found out that it was actually from 1993, and this thing looked like it was made from used tank parts. It was this big, chunky, black thing, and yeah, we were just caught up by this place and started touring around Newfoundland, exploring the drinking culture there. And we really wish this distillery was open back then, because it would have really capped off our visit. But anyways, let me see. Since then, Gillespie's has closed down, or they've moved on to other things, I think. So yeah, that's kind of why we feature a lot of Newfoundland in this book. One of the other reasons why we're featuring a lot of Newfoundland is because Peter tells a great story. We spent a lot of time on the phone talking about it, and there was just so much information that we were given that we needed to write a feature about Newfoundland's future whiskey scene.
Excellent. And I'll go to Davin for the next part. Is Davin, what do you think about the region when you visited it? Had you been there before?
I've been there quite a few times, but when Blair and I went, we really did a detailed tour. We were gathering lots of information. We went in July, and I have to say we had to wear mittens on Canada Day. It was so cold, unbelievable. And I got a note from the tourist bureau after when our article came out in Whiskey Magazine, and she said no one's ever going to want to visit Newfoundland after reading your article. I was thinking, we had the best time ever. We ate moose meat. I know a couple of times. We nearly got beat up by the outlaws motorcycle gang. We did all kinds of really, really exciting things. We went all the way up to the top. Was it Asso Meadow, I think it's called? And just cover the place. It's a fabulous, wonderful place, and it's got its own flavors. It really does. Cloudberries being one, and of course the Newfoundland cloudberry gin is what Blair's drinking right now. But I mean, this gunpowder and rose rum that I'm drinking right now. I mean, that's got burned birch and burnt alder, but it's also got Newfoundland wild roses. Fantastic stuff. And when you go to the seaweed gin, you get things like kelp right out of the Atlantic Ocean there from Newfoundland. And they really tell a story about the way the plants that grow there. Now, when we were there, I collected every kind of berry jam I could get for my wife and tasted them all. But what's interesting is Newfoundland, it's a rock. It's not really an agricultural place. So guess what? They haven't really used pesticides. So everything you get there is organic, pesticide free. It's just a wonderful place. So I was very excited. I had dinner at a place, or Blair and I together, at a place called Raymond's, I think it is. And when we started talking to the guys at the Newfoundland Distillery Company, we realized these guys have exactly the same sensibilities about their palate. So I'm very enthused.
So you liked the product, did you?
The product, and you know what? Her comments about not wanting to visit to this, you know what? Bring some gloves, I think is all you're saying in your article. Beautiful place, bring some gloves. And so there's 2 pages. I just wanted to show you the 2 pages on here. So that's the first page. But the second one, the larger write-up right there as well. So well done. And that's the, which still is that, Blair?
That's the one from Gillespie's.
Okay. And if you look at that, that's a dark and heavy and menacing looking still, I think. But
whereas behind Peter, it's pretty damn sexy right now.
That does. Very, very pretty. And we'll be talking about those stills a little bit later. One thing I did not do beforehand was talk about our initial trek there, so we can get kind of our bearings as to where everything is. Right here. So let's go way down here. This is coming from Distillerie Saint Laurent, because we always say we're going from one distillery to the next. It's 6 hours and 25 minutes to fly.
I think you've got to go back to Montreal to get there.
Okay, I'm guessing it's something, or you've got the one propeller flight and they're stopping for gas or something. That's a long flight. But if you look at the kilometers, 2,000 kilometers away, so we're going 27 hours to get there. That's quite the hike. But if you want to get an idea as to where it is compared to Quebec City, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, there it is, and it's the far side. And here's our close-up if you want to see it. We might have 1 or 2 people on here tonight because I have some friends, Newfoundland friends, and he said his sister's from Clark's Beach, so hopefully this makes them happy seeing home up on the big screen, right? And otherwise, the only other comment I want to say is if you look at Davin and I, this weekend, we would have been at the Banff Whiskey Experience. And this is a picture of Davin and I at last year's Banff Whiskey Experience. So I've got 4 copies of the book that he signed for me, the original and the other one that I used for our book club, and 2 others that friends wanted me to get signed. It was a fun weekend, and I've been thinking about it a lot, Davin. So I don't know if that's been part of your memory past week, but I bet we would all rather be somewhere else, and there would not be a COVID at the moment.
Well, tonight we're in Newfoundland, and let's talk about the Newfoundland Distilling Company.
Well, we might have done this from Banff. I was thinking if we were still doing this in Banff, I knew it. Whoever we had, you and I were gonna talk from the booth and the stuff in the background, and we would have talked to Peter from the back. It would have been kind of fun doing that. Blair, were you in line to come to Banff this year?
Yes, I was.
Excellent. Oh, we could have met in person for the first time.
Exactly.
But this is as good as it's going to get for us right now. And it's a great day. All right. I have feedback from one of you, and I'm probably going to mute some of you from time to time just to see if I can figure it out. But for the moment, let's do this. And my next question, it's for you, Peter. So this might feel a little bit aggrandizing, but I think it gives us a good idea as to the Newfoundland Distillery, what it's based on, and what your roots are. So, Peter, your co-owner, William or Bill, is a Cordon Bleu chef. Could you tell people what that means, what type of training he needs to be a Cordon Bleu chef? And then I have another quote from Blair I want to put up because, like I said, these guys wrote a lot about you guys. So I have a lot of quotes from Davin and Blair to throw up. But Peter, I'm going to focus on you.
Well, I think I'm a cordon bleu chef. It just means you're sort of trained in the classic, mainly French way of cooking.
Okay.
And I think it's a couple of years you've got to do, and you really learn the whole process of cooking. And Bill has been a phenomenal chef and for a very long time.
Yeah.
So he learned everything about booze. Or not about booze, but about preserving local berries and everything. I guess through his training, because his one when he was sort of cooking in Ottawa was to get all the local produce he could and preserve them. And he always wanted to preserve them in alcohol because he thought that's the best way to do it. And, so really it's the knowledge that he's gained from that we, slightly harnessed to make spirits that he and I both absolutely love. And I should say Bill really wanted to be here this evening, but unfortunately he's on very important family commitments. Children playing football or soccer.
Something. Sports is very important.
Family's more fun.
Everything is family. You got to focus on the family. That's why I tell all my friends. But I want them watching me while they're focusing on their family.
They can do that.
They can, I think. I just put up a quote, and this one's from Davin or Blair. It could be both because, like I said, I never know which one. And it's after a tenure as a chef in Ottawa, cooking for prime ministers, celebrities, U.S. presidents, and visiting royalty, the experience honed his approach to the culinary arts, making unpretentious seasonal ingredients pop on the palate. Gin was already in his wheelhouse. So what do you think this gave him as insight in the liquor realm? What did he bring to the table because of that, do you think?
An innate understanding how to harness the flavors of all sorts of different local ingredients and botanicals. And what Bill really wanted to do to begin with was make whiskey. And he and I are old friends, and I hadn't seen him a great deal while he was in Ottawa, but when he came back, wanting to live back in the province again, he said to me, I want to make whiskey. And I said, I'd love to make whiskey, but it takes a long time. Can you make gin? And he just sort of laughed at me and said, yeah, of course. And so I said, brilliant. Well, where's the gin? So off he went. And a couple of weeks later, it might have been 3 or 4 weeks later, but it was quite quick. He came back with some gin, and I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. It's really good. And so he made some more bottles, and I took them on a summer tour of the UK. Yep. Because obviously I haven't got a deep Newfoundland accent, but I have been here for 22 years, so I'm a baby.
Really?
And everybody loved the gin. And so we then thought, oh, well, let's just see if we can make it legally. And, started going through all the necessary steps. And much to our surprise, in about a month, we found ourselves legally able to distill in Clark Creek. And so, we got going and playing with the flavors and, indulging ourselves.
That was quick, 1 month. Okay.
It might have been 6 weeks.
Good for you. We've heard stories about a year later, a year and a half later. So your month is very encouraging. So that's fantastic.
We met it was June 2016. Bill and I had our first chat about it.
Okay.
I think in September, we were able to legally distill.
Wow. Okay.
And then we did our tests, and then we sort of sorted everything else out. And it was early 2017 we had our first runs going.
Did you know some government officials that you could slide some money to? I'm wondering how they approved it so quickly. No,
I don't know. They were all incredibly helpful and really on side. And because we were the first sort of dedicated distillery in the province, everybody was saying, yes, great idea, carry on.
Well, Dave, I don't think yours was anything like that, was it? You were the first, or you were the first big one up there.
Yeah, it was pretty quick. We had no laws on the book in the Yukon to get distilling, so we brought it up to one of the politicians. He ran it by the group. They all voted for it, and things started going. So
how fast was yours, though?
I can't give you a date on that, but it went real fast.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. That's what happened. Everybody works together.
Davin and Blair, you've heard of any others that went really quick like this or not? Because it's a surprise to me.
No, I think, in the Yukon, they got it done in an afternoon, and Peter tells us he got it. It took him a couple of months. No, usually it takes years. In the beginning, it took years everywhere. Yeah, so it's this is unusual, but it's not surprising.
Okay, Peter, did they make laws for you as well?
No, but they didn't. The NLC, or the Newfoundland Liquor Corporation, didn't have any idea. They didn't really know how they were doing it. So they were just saying, we don't really know what we're doing, so let's just do it together.
Yeah.
And so we did. And they made it really easy. And, it was, we feel immensely lucky.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good. And it worked out to your benefit. So it's fantastic. We're happy.
Yeah.
Peter, let's continue with you, because we talked about your partner, and I'm wondering, because you had two paths. Let's talk about you as the artist before. And I don't know if this is yours. Did you create that?
Well, I like to think it was my idea, but it was my daughter's idea, I think. And apparently she's claiming it. So I now have to graciously give her credit for it.
Beautiful. Well, tell us about your past anyways. As an artist, I'd like to know, what's your medium? What do you do?
Well, normally I've work in sort of video and photography. I mean, obviously not from the lighting of me, because you can't see me, but still looks nice. But I started trying to do video portraits. So I did a range of Canadian writers, which were sort of been exhibited across Canada and in the UK, of people like Margaret Atwood and Jan Martel, and a range of others. And that worked really well. And at the same time, I was trying to make photography, which is a very sort of documentary art form, into an abstract art form. So I would take landscape photographs and then turn them into abstract patterns. And I think with wine, doing that, and the color of wine. I've been meaning to do it with whiskey and spirits, but I've been a bit distracted over the last 4 or 5 years.
You're a busy guy. That's okay. And
if you're doing portraits,
your art somewhere. Oh, sorry, Davin, go ahead.
Just to say, and if, Peter, if you're doing portraits of writers on the level of Margaret Atwood and Jan Martel, you really should be thinking about Blair and I as well.
Well, I know. Well, if you ever get here, we could do a combined portrait. And there were some big portraits that looped, so it's like a moving one. And then suddenly they all came up on the Harry Potter movies. But they're moving portraits where they are considering key moments of their life that they've told me about in the hour before we set up the shot.
Okay.
So, it was quite a fun experience. And, it was great to go meet all the writers and have a chat with them.
I'll bet it was fabulous.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, and before I continue, I can't show my shirt because I'm not there, but you guys should see this beautiful shirt. This was the swag that I got, that I asked for in. So we got the gin and the rum, but I also got this beautiful shirt, and it shows. That's it doesn't go off my stomach very much. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's fantastic.
You model it very well.
Thank you. And second job, though, your second job, and I'm really jealous of your second job. But please tell me what you did on prime time. I'm not sure if it was prime time, but let's call it prime time TV. Tell me what you did there, and it probably to your artistic kind of vision as well.
Well, actually, I mean, this is why Bill came to me, because I was one of the sort of few people who could call themselves a professional drinker. Because I was sent around the world for British TV, for Sky, with a great friend who is a sort of works in TV in the UK, and we had to investigate how other cultures approach alcohol. Okay. So we went from Europe to India to Australia to States, Mexico, Russia. Looking at all aspects of alcohol, but mainly trying local spirits. And it was fantastic, absolutely brilliant.
Great job.
Yeah, Dave and I are drooling, and we're just thinking about what type of life we could have had. I'm a teacher, and I give that up in a second. You go back, you want to do that in Canada? You tell me, I'll drop in teaching. I'm doing this. I'm out there with you. We'll go everywhere. Everywhere. I don't care what I drink. I will drink anything. Sorry, I won't say that. Distilled stuff.
Well, no, I think when you're doing it and being professional, you have to drink anything. And mostly it's all right. But there are some that really just not great. The only one I could never really get into was pulque in Mexico.
And what is that?
it's a sort of, it's just disgusting.
Is it distilled or is it brewed?
It's a sort of brewed alcohol, but it's almost made out of milk, and so it's a bit like, and there's quite a lot of sort of gelatinous stringy bits. You know, if you're having kombucha, it's a bit like an alcoholic kombucha, but milky, and then they put odd flavors in it and a bit of tequila, and it's just, I didn't get it, but they all loved it.
So the consistency was not there either. Consistent, like on the palate, it went from one feel to another. It would just
you'd occasionally get globules in there.
Yeah, I could see how that would be up and off with.
What did you call that, Peter?
Pulque.
Pulque. I had something in Kazakhstan which was fermented horse milk.
And how was that?
Well, I bet it was a lot worse than your pulque. I think they call it kumis or something. It was vile. It was. I'm sorry. They love it. But you know, we got a distillery right just down the road from Ottawa that makes vodka out of milk permeate from cow's milk. It is fabulous. It's like freaking butter.
Yeah, I've had some in the UK as well, called Cow or something, and that was amazing. Yeah, we were astonished.
Yeah, but your spirits, both your gin and your rum, are quite buttery as well. That's something I really like about them, especially when they've got those, you know, those unusual flavors like the gunpowder gin, where you've got that you know, charred wood flavor in it, and on the seaweed, pardon me, in the rum, the charred wood, and in the seaweed gin, man, I love that kelp. It's not the first time I've had seaweed in a gin, but this is fabulous, and I think this is the big thing about your partner Bill or William, is his ability to synthesize all these flavors together, provide such beautiful balance and complexity, yet the parts are totally integrated. And I really enjoy that.
Well, I agree. He's absolutely amazing. I mean, I have the wonderful job of occasionally coming into work at 9 o'clock on a Monday, and Bill saying, "Okay, we've got 10 different versions of the same drink, but they're very slightly different. We've got to choose which one we want now." It's like, Bill, can we not just wait half an hour or till lunch? We've got to do it now.
Well, Peter, I think you're a little bit more than that. You do that. And you know what? Here's a comment from Blair. I'll let me pull this up right here. So, to Wilkins, distilling resembled some whale of an art project. When he watched the first alcohol dripping from the still, he saw drops of joy. The aesthetic and concept of spirits excite him. But is that because of his artistic sensibility merges with the craft? Possibly. So he waxes poetic. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It gets us here. How have both jobs helped you out? Because we could see it's a little bit obvious how the chef helps you up in this case, but how have both of those jobs helped you now in your present role?
Well, that's quite a good question. I think there is artistry to distilling and to making spirits and to making beautiful things and to being able to appreciate them. So, in a sense, yeah, they've merged perfectly, and through great luck rather than any management, Bill and I sort of met and were able to start playing with spirits and experimenting. And that's the really fun thing, because it is, there are guidelines and there are all these sort of standard drinks that we can have, but if you're able to push and play with them, you can make new, really exciting things. And it's to be not frightened of trying things in a slightly new way and really having fun with it and celebrating the process, and also where you're from, because that is what makes what you create.
Excellent. So the creative process, you were liberated, so to speak. Let's say that. And
yeah, and I should explain something here. So when I was in university, I took this fourth year philosophy of art. It was on a Friday morning at 8 a.m. and half the students showed up smelling like weed. So I took this course, and I was like, I need to do something with this thing. So when I was talking to Peter, and I realized he was this big, prolific artist, it just made sense to keep needling him about how spirits and art and cooking all interact and connect like Lego. And that's where that came from, was that the fact that I took this ridiculous art course that that I get contact highs from at Friday 8 a.m. So that explains why we went in that direction.
Well, that's fantastic, because I have a whole handful of courses that I took on various mornings, and I was an astute student. I was very good, but I still have limited ability to integrate it into real life yet. So you did that, Blair. Good.
Finally.
20 years, but I'm there. I did.
Yeah.
Peter, I'm sorry for asking this again. I know you've answered this before, but tell me how two people in such divergent jobs, divergent paths, could come together and one of them say, hey, did you ever think about opening a distillery making whiskey? The story for us all, please, kind sir.
No, it wasn't really on my radar, but I think as Blair says, it was a great art project. And if you think about art and art bringing a bit of joy, it was just, as soon as he said it, I mentioned it, it sort of expanded and opened up as an opportunity, and for him and I to do it. We got on very well, and I think Bill had been quietly cooking the idea for a while. And as soon as he mentioned it, it just, as I said, it did all happen quite quickly and very naturally, without it wasn't a great scheme on our part. It wasn't, okay, we're going to do this and this. It was just, let's see if we can get to the next stage and to the next stage.
So how did you meet in the first place then? I believe your wife is from Newfoundland. Are they from the same area, possibly?
My wife is a philosopher, or just finishing her PhD in philosophy. Okay. And her best friend at university was Bill's elder brother, Ken, and he was studying philosophy then as well. And Michelle met me in a bar in Prague in the Czech Republic in the sort of early or mid-90s.
Yeah.
We hung out there having a wonderful life, and then a bit of work, but it was a lot of fun and eating and drinking. And then we lived in London and had children. And then one day she said, I want to go home. And I said, really? And she said, yes. And so we actually now live in the house that she grew up in, which is in Clark's Beach.
Nice. Okay.
And we've had all our 4 daughters here, and they've all grown up here. And it's the most wonderful, amazing place. It's absolutely fantastic. So one of the reasons the distillery is in Clark's Beach is because Michelle grew up in Clark's Beach, and I've been living here for 20 years, and it seemed much easier to do it so I could walk to work. Well, actually, it's not walking to work; it's walking from work after a tough day. Because I don't always want to drive home.
No, but you can walk home depending on how much you've actually sampled throughout the day. I've already wondered how much the distillers actually do sample throughout the day. And it explains why in Scotland, a lot of them have their rooms there at the distillery. So,
Peter, I'm going to send her my term paper so she can burn it.
But if you want to, I'll give it to her, and she'll be delighted.
To burn it. She's a book burner. She is.
Burn it. No, she wouldn't burn it. No, she'd read it and comment, and give you some constructive advice.
Oh, just jokes.
Oh, probably just marvel in its brilliance.
Well, let's get back to where it's situated, because I've got a quote here from Blair/Davin. We don't know which one. Right here. So Garfield, Ralph's sold everything from hardware, oilskin coats, and wedding dresses to coffins, but closed when the owner took up permanent residence in one of the latter. It was fantastic. I love that line. So this was your original establishment, and then you moved a little bit after that. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we moved across the road and sort of onto the ocean side into a slightly bigger and better location, which we were very lucky to get. And it was the home of the first supermarket around the bay. In our shop now, we've got the original, we like to think it was the first ever automated checkout.
Oh, okay.
In the province, around the bay. And it had one of those motors that, or conveyor belts that slide all the goods down so you can check them out more quickly.
So your new establishment, it looks brand new. So this was, did you have to tear down something, or was this a new spot where nothing was actually on it previously?
Oh no, we did a renovation.
Okay.
Because it's so close to the ocean, you can't build that close to the ocean anymore.
Okay.
And I don't know if you can see, if it will show you, and actually it's the sunset. Probably a bit too dark.
Oh, that's nice.
Boy.
But it's all just sort of
beautiful views. Now I know why you have the camera that way, so you can look outside. We can see the stills, but you can see the sunset. That's fantastic.
I've been watching the sunset, and I thought I should get that, but then I thought, be professional and show the still in the background.
Yep.
But this was an old. I think it was an old garage. It's just been a big storage unit, and we had to get it up to code. We had to sort of bring it down quite a lot to the ground and pour some concrete, and then lift it back up in exactly the same location.
Okay. A lot of work. And I think I'm going to get to the gist of why you moved, but you both had, you and Bob, William, your fair share of adversity. I don't want to bring up bad memories or to minimize the explosion that could have been far worse than I think it was. But I'd like to know what happened, if you could, and how you and your employees fared, and how this changed you possibly for the better. So if I could get all three of those. Sorry.
Oh, gosh. Well, very briefly, it's very unfortunate, and it's and primarily there was a bit of, we think the drain wasn't fully closed, and there was a little leak in the drain, so the levels were going down, and then the element, when it switched on, instead of being in the alcohol, was just very, very slightly above, and it shorted, which is what, in a sense it was a faulty element, and that was what instigated the explosion. And there are lots of investigations into it, and it's just a set of very unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah.
And we were very lucky. We had only one person who was sort of injured, and he was in hospital for a couple of weeks, but has made a full recovery and done really well. And so, and that, when an accident happens, the most important thing is everybody's health and that everybody's well, because everything else you can redo and rebuild.
Yeah.
So we were very lucky in a very unfortunate situation. But at the same time, we had been talking to Pacific about new stills because everything was just taking off. And so we were looking at buying a whole range of new equipment and sort of expanding to the distillery where we were. And so, in a sense, the timing was, we were making all those changes anyway and had everything in place. So we're quite lucky. I mean, it did take a bit longer than we thought because a lot of things do.
Well, I've got a couple pictures of the still. So these are some of the elements that rose from the ashes. And let's get this still. And we're just seeing it from the opposite angle of what you are seeing it right now. And I'd like to know a couple things. One, who went shopping for the new hardware? What were you looking for? And if you're answering that, what were you looking for? Did you go to an agency to tell them we are reorganizing? Give us some ideas as to what you would do, or did you have all the ideas yourself? You'd been in the game long enough to know what you wanted to change.
Yeah, we went looking for a new still in columns, and our key criteria was that it was made in Canada.
Okay.
So we confined ourselves to that, and quite quickly settled on Specific in Victoria and BC. And then it was just getting the right bit of kit. And because in Newfoundland, now if you have, this is a beautiful custom-made still, because we have to, all stills, these stills are powered by steam. In most of Canada and North America, the steam required for a still is low pressure steam, which is sort of under 15 psi. But in Newfoundland, it's considered high pressure steam. So it means the still has to be especially designed and CRN approved, which means all the materials have to be sourced, all the welds have to be certified, and the design has to be approved by the CRN registry. So it's a whole range of sort of extra steps that we had to go through. So when we, you start what I call growing up and getting to the next stage.
Yeah. So it probably took you longer to get that cleared than it took you originally to start distilling.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And you
giggling in the background.
Okay. Blair and Davin, in your book, it says it's 1,000-liter mechanical still. I just need to know what makes it mechanical as opposed to just a regular pot still. You input data and it just happens. Is that a mechanical still?
I don't know. I think that
that's the name of the company that makes them.
It's a specific mechanical, I believe, Peter. Yeah.
All right.
There's a couple of these in Canada. And they're some really good spirits come out of them. So.
Yeah, and they are beautiful if you look at it. And we've talked about this before. There is a beauty to stills, and people who love their spirits love looking at the stills, and it's very pretty. So that's a great background for you, Peter. I think it's fantastic. It's good.
Well, thank you. This is gorgeous. We stroke it every now and then and just have a little chat.
Stroke it. I love you. Thank you. I love you. Thank you. It's good. Go ahead, Dave.
How many plates are in your still?
20. In the columns, I've got 20 in the columns, and an oven head on the still. If I put it back, can you?
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's much better.
Well, we can't see your face now, but the still's beautiful. We can see your. That's good. Davin and Blair. Oh, Dave, you have another question?
No, I was just getting to go down a little bit. There we go.
Okay. Davin and Blair, you've seen your fair share of distilleries start up. Is there an advantage in getting someone to help you organize the distillery as opposed to making your choices or own mistakes? Because you've seen them both. You've seen it where the distillery's been pretty well dictated by someone in Germany figuring it out, do this, do this, do this. And you've seen the other where it's just a mesh of different small parts. Does one turn out better than the other?
I think it all depends on the individual who's starting the distillery. You think of a distillery like Ampersand in Duncan, BC, and they did everything themselves, including designing and building their stills. And Viking vodkas made in stills that Scott built himself and designed himself. Other people they buy, like it's turnkey operation. I think that whether you buy or whether you do everything yourself, you still can have a lot of input on what you make and how you do it. If I was going to start a distillery, I would hire a consultant who would save me a lot of grief. I remember talking to somebody who did a course after he'd been distilling for 2 years, and his eyes were open, and he said, I wish I'd done this 2 years ago. So I think it depends on the individual. How receptive are you to other people's ideas? We know the guy who started Copper and Kings in Louisville, Kentucky. When he called the people up, he was like he knew exactly what he wanted, and he told them, this is what our distillery is going to look like. So it really all depends on the individual. I think it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
All right.
Yeah, Peter, would you agree? Would you agree, Peter?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I think they're great virtues. If you don't know everything about it and you haven't sort of set up a distillery before, I think you probably definitely want the consultant. There's so many things you don't know about. Dave, would you say that?
Well, we bought a still in Germany, and they said, we'll send a guy over. And we said, no, we'll figure it out ourselves. And we did. But
And they did it in on Easter weekend, right? That was it?
yeah, and if they had let me figure the still out, I would have probably blown the place up. So, so yeah.
That's all right.
Different degrees of expertise.
Peter, we've talked about your genesis. We've talked about the distillery. We've talked about the stills, but we haven't talked about the liquid gold that flows. Now, Davin and Blair state in the book that your aquavit's the first legally distilled spirit in Newfoundland, and here it is here. Now, is that the first legally distilled ever, or in a certain amount of time?
I think in the 19th century they had some distilleries, or one distillery in St. John's, and it burnt down a couple of times and shut down. But all their grain was imported from mainland Canada. And our aquavit was the first one that was made with grain grown in the province and distilled here in the province. So we think it is the first ever legally, because I know some people would have been distilling quietly using other local produce of some kind. But it's the first ever fully distilled legally,
all right,
product in the province.
Yeah, I can probably back up Peter on that assumption, because that distillery, there's a guy named Charles Bennett, I believe, and he had a flour mill, and I think they brought in all their ingredients from either other provinces or from Europe. And then there was a distillery in the 1930s that opened up in St. John's. And the funny thing is, if you look back into these old newspaper articles, they talk about this distillery, how they had this innovative way of aging wine, rum, and whiskey without having to put it in barrels. And then they disappeared. They're no longer mentioned. So I think I'm confident to state that the aquavit is the first Newfoundland, all Newfoundland ingredient spirit in the province.
All right, we'll agree with you. I can't disagree. I have no idea. That's good. Dave, go ahead, buddy.
Hey, I got a question from the sideline. Whiskey asked. There we go. You got the two columns back there. Do they run? Does it go through? Is it two separate columns? Are they joined somehow? Or I haven't seen that before.
Well, when we're making our vodka, at least a grain spirit, yes, it goes up one column and then down and then comes up the column again. And so they're connected by pipes. Okay. But when we're beginning to sort of get enough whiskey so we can lay down our own whiskey in the next month, finally, they won't go through the columns. They'll just go through the onion. It'll just go through the onion head.
Yeah. Okay, that was a good question by Whiskey Asked. Well, I didn't see that before.
Good job, Ken.
Do you want me? Do you want me to take on a little? I don't know how safe it'll be.
Sure.
How my aim will be, but
I'll just stay at the back of the crowd here in case something bad happens.
Okay, so.
Cool. So when it goes up,
getting the aim quite right.
And up and up and up it goes. Yeah.
2, 4, 6.
There, and then you can see at the bottom underneath. Oh, actually, they're just there. Hang on. Can you see that pipe? That little pipe there. That returns it back. And then it goes back into the still.
Into the pot still. Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does too.
Sorry, it's a bit like I've been drinking an awful lot. It's just I'm doing backward aiming and I'm not very good at it, evidently.
You're doing a great job, Peter. It's fantastic.
Thanks.
But you know what? This gives us a good chance to let's talk about the spirit in the glasses. Davin, you have the gin, Why don't you give us a little bit of a I can actually show people the write-up that they had online. And nope, that's the rum. Sorry, Davin, did you have the rum or did you have the gin?
Well, I have to be honest, I'm drinking both, going back and forth.
All right, well, let's do the rum right now. And if people wanted to, they could read the write-up that they have online. And the link is down below if anyone wants to know. But it's the the Newfoundland Distillery Company. It's very simple, very easy to find their homepage, but they have all the write-ups like this, and it's very well written. So whoever did the writing for that, good job. Peter, I'm not sure who did it. Maybe one of his daughters did it.
I think I helped, and we had a range of editors.
Oh, no, it's very well done. So everyone should read it. But Davin, tell me what you think about the rum.
Well, first sip, it's sweet and it's quite buttery. It really has a wonderful butteriness to the flavor. And then just as soon as you just take the slight swallow, you're getting some of that charred wood, but it's not like a bourbon barrel or something like that. It's actually like the wood, there's still wood, where it's burned and some of it's just toasted. So you're getting a lot of really interesting flavors. Like I know they use birch, but I can taste like alder or something in there. It's a beautiful, tasty, burnt notes to it. There's something in there that is a little bit, that Siri is talking to me. I thought I fired her. I'll wait. I'll talk to Alexa later.
Okay.
Anyways, so it's got lots of breadth and depth. It's a rum that's got many different layers, but they all seem to be beautifully integrated. But what I really like is the sweetness, but it's not overly sweet at the front, with the butteriness, and then that nicely integrated charcoal flavor at the beginning, or burned wood is more like it at the beginning, like you firewood that you poured water on or something like that.
Now this comes from your site, Davin. So you or Blair wrote this. So the nose blossoms with floral tones balanced by fruity char. And people continue with that. It's beautiful. It's very poetic. I'm trying to discern rose water or something. So I don't know what I'm looking for to possibly get the rose water. I'm trying to look for a sweetness that's not vanilla based. Is that what I should be looking for the rose water, maybe?
I think at the end, the hint of the roses, I think over time, the rose flavors get lessened. When we first had it, they were sort of there. But the idea is, and when we first had it, is you get the sort of gunpowder flavors at the beginning.
Okay.
And then you get your sort of, the middle act is the traditional rum flavors. And then there could be the slight floral notes and floral finish at the end.
I don't really get much vanilla at all, Dolph.
No, I'm just getting a hint, but I'm trying to find the sweetness that I thought was rose. And I was trying to differentiate between vanilla and maybe something else.
Yeah.
So,
do you taste vanilla in that, Peter or Blair? I don't.
I get the brown sugar and then the brininess towards the end. But it's there's a lot of intricacy in this rum that shows off what Bill's up to. That's what I think.
Yeah.
And
where is this available in Canada? Because this is a rum that rum drippers should really try. This I know you're in Alberta. Are you in other provinces as well?
In Alberta, we're in Quebec and Nova Scotia, and we're actually going for a tasting at the LCBO in October. So finally, we might get a breakthrough with the LCBO, which would be
super.
Yeah.
Peter, this might be a hard question to memorize these things, but do you know names of stores in Alberta that might possibly have it?
No, but there are about 39 of them or 40, and it's growing. And yeah, it's wonderful. People seem to be really enjoying it there. And we're just about to ship another 54 cases. But if you go to liquorconnect.com,
yeah, and we do.
Do a search for gunpowder, it will then tell you all the stores. But I think it's about 16 or 17 in both Calgary and Edmonton.
Good.
And then
We'll look for it. It's lovely. And the people on the sidelines are trying it now, and there's comments up there about both the gin and the rum that I passed out yesterday and to friends just recently in the book club. So it's going over very well. And once we figure out where it is, I'm pretty sure we'll be picking it up. Go ahead, Dave.
All right, Whiskey Ass just came in with his second one. It's that Wine and More, or is it Wine and More or Wine and Beyond?
Wine and Beyond.
Well, it says Wine and More, so I don't know if you mistyped that. Or, I don't know that.
Yeah, the triple Negroni. That's what happened.
No.
My Negroni's next. That's good.
I don't even try mixed drink. But yeah,
Nicole, very quickly, Peter. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Great.
Nicole Olenek, Black Cat Whiskey, says the gin has been amazing and the rum has been sitting and is so buttery on the nose. Just like, yeah, okay. Light char, according to Whiskey. I love the salt. Nicole loves the salt finish to it. It's not too sweet at all. I agree. It's not too sweet, but it does taste really good.
So what kind of cereal would that go with, Nicole?
That'd be good. And Peter, we do have Nicole's part of our whiskey book club, and she has had tastings. Well, she's had 2 tastings in the past on pairing of whiskeys with cereal.
With breakfast cereal.
We do ask you which one would go with it. And she was with us last night, and she's got a fantastic nose. So these are good things to ask. Questions that normal people don't ask, but whiskey geeky people do. It's good.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a store now. It's the Everything Wine and More in Sherwood Park. It only took them 3 tries to get it right. So.
Okay,
Be
sorry.
Be nice.
People in Alberta can go to the internet and find the store, but I'm just really glad that it's getting across Canada.
We're absolutely delighted. It's very exciting. We're sort of spreading across Canada.
Peter, maybe you can help me out. I've asked Dave this question, and I'm wondering if it's different for you. How do you approach a province to get it in the province? I know LCBO is different, and it's you're making a presentation. You have to promise them certain things. What happens in Alberta, let's say, to be able to come into this market?
Well, you've got to really, with every province, you have to find an agent.
Yep.
So you've got to get an agent first who thinks your product got a chance of being taken up by the liquor board, and who hopefully believes that your product's great and sellable and that they will make some money with it. So we're very lucky with the agents in Alberta. Actually, Luigi from First Choice Cellars came to the distillery and had the booze, and he stumbled upon it by chance. He was just driving by and saw it, came in, had the booze, and loved it. I happened to be there, and we had a chat, and off he went. And then, a month later, he said, he spoke to his partners, and they were our agents.
That worked out well.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, if only everything in life was so easy.
Peter, it seems like a lot of things seem fairly seamless to you guys. I think you're quite lucky. You meet, people. It takes you a month and a half to do things. You get into these things kind of seamlessly.
We are immensely lucky, and we don't, because I think we're not trying. We don't have a specific game plan. We just want to make some really good spirits that we like, that we can share with our friends and enjoy it, and just focus on that, and really almost amusing ourselves with new flavors or new ways of doing things. And we check them, then we get friends to check them. And we're not that objective, but we try to be really objective. But obviously, we're totally subjective, and we just enjoy it. And so I think that sometimes brings us a little more luck, because we're not looking too far ahead or trying to think about money or this is about proving something. It's about, can we have a bit of fun and go back to the old day job.
Well, let's just say good things happen to good people. Let's just leave it at that. That's a good thing. That's great. We're going to end on this because we're at 59 minutes, but I would like to focus on this in the Whiskey Book Club part, because we've referred to it a couple times, and it's about your, well, here, I'll put the quote up. preserve local botanicals all year round. Why? And here's the third one. The Newfoundland Distillery is the first craft distillery in Newfoundland which uses locally grown barley as the base spirit for many products. And finally, all of our spirits celebrate and focus on the purity of ingredients, shores of Newfoundland. Juniper and the other ingredients are all picked locally on land or from sea. And this focus has pretty well defined you. Is that correct? This is what you've held on to?
Yeah, I think so. There've been, since we started, we've stuck with those ideas, and they're our sort of guiding principles. And so we do that as much as we can, for all of those points. As much as we can. I mean, occasionally, practically, we need to go outside the province, perhaps to get more grain, because there might not be enough in the province this year, but we'll get it from Atlantic Canada, which is still technically local.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean that's it. We have a firm idea. There are so many amazing flavors and things that grow in the province that are very pure, because, as Blair mentioned earlier, there's no grape farming, so there's no insecticide. So the honey we use in the Chagga rum and the aquavit is amongst the best honey in the world, and we think all of our ingredients have struggled. They've tried harder to grow. Like, we think our juniper, which is smaller than anywhere else, has got more flavour and a bit more punch because it's really struggled to grow, because we have a much shorter growing season. So,
yeah. Well, especially when it freezes on July 1st, I could see that. One last question for you, though, and one comment from the side. You plan on growing. You're business guys. You've done something. You've created a brand. You want to grow bigger. You're thinking about whiskey, which we're going to talk about in the afterdraft. But do you think it's sustainable to use local ingredients the more and more you grow? At what point do you think you outgrow that? Or do you even go beyond it?
Yeah, I don't think we will, because we're not trying to do a sudden leap into the new world and create massive amounts of product and sort of fill the market with our booze. We're trying to grow fairly, in a small, controlled way, so we don't get overwhelmed by it. And so, if we think next year we do need a lot more grain, we can then ask so many more farmers to plant more grain for us. And certainly all the botanicals we can easily get, there's an immense amount here. So we believe that we can just keep growing gradually, and with a bit of foresight, we can keep everything within the province.
Excellent. No, and that's a good answer. And maybe, like you thought, you're not going to grow beyond it, or there's no intention. Maybe one day you do, maybe you don't. Who knows? It's good to think about it, though, I think. Just two comments on the side. Dave, I think Nicole told us which cereal she would put it with.
Well, she just revised her Whiskey Ass said Cheerios. That's why it's such a. But Nicole wanted to do Cocoa Puffs. That's
why Cocoa Puffs?
Well, it says here. It says to pair the rose salt to the chocolate notes.
All right, good. Let's do it.
So does this mean at breakfast we've got to have a bowl of Cocoa Puffs and a glass of rum on the side?
I think you put it in the Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah. And it's inside, Peter. It's not to the side, it's inside. It takes the place of the milk. Just in case you couldn't figure.
That makes cereal so much more interesting.
Okay, I think so. And here's another question as well. This was from Nicole as well. And I like this because I do like the history questions. Do you feel like preserving the history? Is that something you want to delve into?
We'd love to be able to, in a sense, preserve any sort of history like that. And yes, our rum, the base of that is from Jamaica, which all the salt cod used to go to. So, we're keeping that sort of historical connection going. I think history is an immensely important thing that seems not to be taught a great deal in schools now. Yeah. And it's sort of imperative because it gives a context for everything. It allows one to know why we are here, in Clark's Beach or Alberta or Ottawa, and and with the history of spirits as well, is sort of why we've got to the stage we are. So how can you move it forward without knowing what's happened in the past? So yes, I mean, any historical connections we have, we try and use. And our gunpowder and rose rum was because of the history of the rum being given out to sailors as part of the daily ration, and to get it up to proof, they put gunpowder on it to show the sailors they were getting their full ration. So we have a historical context there, and that's why we actually want to use real gunpowder in the rum, but Health Canada wouldn't let us.
And we're going to talk about that in the Afterdram as well. And what you did instead of the gunpowder is really intriguing to me as well. But I'm going to link all this together because I love how Davin and Blair kind of talk about the history as well. And he's got a natural propensity for the history of Canadian whiskey. It's what happens with what he does. But Blair in his writings as well, and he mentioned it today when they went there, and kind of the ambient atmosphere that comes across when they write is always about the history, and I love that. I'm a history major, so I'm linked to it. I don't know if everyone else loves it as much as I do, but
they do.
So hopefully, Peter, you keep that up. Gentlemen, we're at an hour and 6 minutes. I'm going to go with a last comment from you all, and then I'll do my sign off and get ready for the Afterdram. But we'll go Davin, Blair, Yukon, Dave, and then I'm going to finish off with Peter for last comments if you have any, if that's all right. And here we go, gentlemen.
Hi, my mic's is muted because my dog's barking in the background. I'm Davin. I'm co-author of this book. Dolph, thank you very much for having us on your show. And Peter, wonderful talking to you and meeting you face-to-face by video. Take care.
Thank you, sir.
With Davin's statement, I think that everyone needs to petition the LCBO to carry this beautiful rum, and on to Peter.
On to Peter. Well, actually, on to Dave. On to Dave.
Oh, hey guys, I will be going out next week and picking up my own bottle of the gunpowder rum. And Peter, thanks for coming on and showing us your place. It's been great. I never made it to Newfoundland yet. So
Me either, and I'm waiting.
Well, hopefully you can all come and visit us in Newfoundland, and I'd be delighted and honoured to give you a tour of the distillery and a proper sampling of all of our spirits. And thank you all. It was a delight to sort of meet you all in the video world. Yep. And it's been absolutely wonderful. And thank you very much for thinking of us and including us.
Well, thank you very much. And thanks to Davin and Blair, because they suggested and said they absolutely had to have you on. Gentlemen and ladies on the side, this has been a fantastic start to our evening. Thanks to the listeners. Thanks to our panel. Peter, Davin, Blair, and Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure spending time with all of you. We're moving our conversation to the distillery tour, to the tasting room now, for a more relaxed but equally engaging conversation. Co-authors Davin and Blair of the Definitive Guide to Canadian Distilleries, I'll say the whole thing, the portable expert to over 200 distilleries and the spirits they make, will, of course, be joining us. Because what better summer activity is there than traveling virtually, trying some cocktails, and spending time with some great people? So please join us in about 5 minutes on this channel for the Afterdram. And if you don't want to miss a second of our very last retrospective meeting of these cats and all the other Whisky Book Club guys and gal, like down below, subscribe down below, and I, ladies and gentlemen, shall see you soon with the Afterdram. So let's pull. Actually, I'm done this, so let's go to this one. Here's the one and all. Thank you very much, and I shall see you all in 5 or 6 minutes.
All right.